Hey everyone, and welcome back to News to the Science, where we discuss comics, movies, games, and more. And tonight I am reviewing Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I actually had the pleasure to go see this movie late last night with my girlfriend, and let me tell you, we had a blast. It was a phenomenal movie. I really enjoyed it. I'm definitely going to be getting into like the rating at the very end as far as where this movie sits as my top 5 favorite MCU films. But first I want to talk about what I thought about the movie. I'm not going to be getting into spoilers, so if you clicked on this video wondering or worrying if I'm going to be getting into spoilers, don't worry. I'm not going to do that to you guys. I'm sure a lot of you haven't seen the film yet, so go see the movie now. It is a fantastic time. I think you will enjoy it. But before I get into the details about the movie and talk about my thoughts, I want you all to like, comment, subscribe, and click on the bell notification so you all don't miss anything. Post videos on a daily, live stream on Sundays from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Definitely join my Discord. Invitation link to that is in the description box below, along with the links to my Twitter and Instagram. And of course, if you want to do a super thanks, click on the little heart icon with the $sign in the center so that way you can leave a tip. It definitely helps support the channel. Completely optional, of course. Your viewership is more than enough, and it definitely supports the channel as well. And a big shout out to Sadiq Kermazius for leaving a super thanks on my channel. I appreciate you, buddy. Thank you so much. And as promised, here's your big shout out. Thank you so much, Sadiq. Without further ado, let's talk about this movie. Now, without getting into spoiler territory, is this movie great? Yes. Who is this directed by? It's directed by Sam Raimi, legendary Spider-Man, Mr. Spider-Man himself, as I like to call him. If you don't know who Sam Raimi is, he's a well-known director, specifically mainly a lot of horror films. You probably know him from like films like Bring Me to Hell, and of course the Spider-Man trilogy, and even The Evil Dead and Army of Darkness, which is the sequel, which stars Bruce Campbell, who definitely makes a cameo appearance around the middle of this movie, and of course at the post-credit scene. But that's not really a spoiler itself, because Bruce Campbell is Sam Raimi's best friend, and they've been best friends ever since they were like teenagers. So like if you watch a Sam Raimi film, your odds are you're gonna catch a Bruce Campbell cameo. So anyways, the movie really focuses on Doctor Strange. Like first off, when we get into the movie, it really jumps into the action where something is happening in a different part of the multiverse. It really explores a lot of different universes throughout the multiverse in this movie. I mean, that's why they call it Multiverse of Madness. The real MacGuffin here is one of the characters played by Xochitl Gomez. I know I'm probably not saying that correctly, but I think it's pronounced Xochitl. I looked up the pronunciation and I'm doing my best to pronounce her name. But she plays America Chavez, which is a newcomer, actually, a new character in Marvel Comics, who's making her first appearance in this film as a new character. I think Marvel Studios definitely going with the Young Avengers, and that's why we're seeing all these kids and these newcomers coming into Marvel Studios films and projects on Disney+. But the movie's a great time. I mean, you can tell by watching this movie that this is a Sam Raimi project. There's a lot of craziness, a lot of special effects that really harkens back to like the Spider-Man 2 era, the first Spider-Man film. It's very similar. Of course, the music is composed by the same composer that did the original Spider-Man trilogy, Danny Elfman. When you listen to this film and its score, like you can tell it's Danny Elfman by the way how like the score is kind of jumpy and bright and bouncy and everything like that. Like if that makes any sense. Without trying to sound like I'm getting into spoilers, something happens to a particular character. We all know that Wanda is in this movie. If you have not seen the trailers by now, if you haven't figured it out already, Wanda played by Elizabeth Olsen, which is, she's brilliant and more powerful and more terrifying and intimidating than ever. You definitely need to see it because she's just impactful and she's just crazy bonkers in this movie. I cannot spoil it. Like, I really want to get into details as to why she is the way she is in this movie, which, believe it or not, caused me to actually be a little bit of afraid of her because she can be quite terrifying at her worst when she's actually at her most powerful. Now, I'm gonna get into the specifics as to like the sequences with Wanda. There's a sequence where Wanda is actually chasing Doctor Strange and American Chavez and Rachel McAdams' character Christine Palmer down like this old like underground hall where like the barricades keep shutting down because they're trying to slow her down. And it kind of reminded me of the sequence of like the Terminator, like the very first movie, while because like she's kind of like limping through this hall chasing them down because she's clearly after something or someone in this case, without getting into spoilers. And it's just the thought of it, of like somebody chasing you, is actually kind of quite terrifying no matter who it is. And Wanda actually comes across as this psychopathic, unhinged woman, and it's just like really terrifying and scary. And how Elizabeth Olsen delivers in that performance, she did a phenomenal job. And you know that a Sam Raimi film is not a Sam Raimi film without its horror elements. Now, Kevin Feige did say when he first announced Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness going into production that this will be Marvel Studios' first horror film, and it'll be PG-13 and you're gonna like it, end quote. And to some extent, there's a bit of truth to that to some extent, but not entirely. Now, I was expecting a full-blown like horror movie because Kevin Feige did say it was gonna be a horror movie. At first, Scott Derrickson was set to direct this movie, but quickly departed because of creative differences, as how it goes in the business. But then when I first heard that they hired Sam Raimi to take over as a director, I'm like, it's genius. Like, you can't pick a better person to do a horror movie than Sam Raimi. And so when that was announced, and like, I was like really pumped and hyped. And I'm like, wow, now I want to see Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness even more. And then when it was announced that Danny Elfman was going to score the film, I'm like, oh, this is brilliant. This movie is going to be phenomenal. It's going to be fantastic. Sam Raimi and Danny Elfman go together like bread and butter. Like, it's brilliant. I just, like, I love everything that Danny Elfman has done in as far as like scoring movies, like, you know, the old Tim Burton movies and whatnot, because he's worked a lot with Tim Burton. When I heard that he was going to score it, I was just extremely ecstatic, and I'm like, yeah, this is going to be definitely a horror film. Now, I'm going to say that I was a little bit disappointed that it wasn't exactly the horror film I was expecting. I wasn't expecting like a major full-blown hardcore horror film. I wanted more horror out of it. Now, that's not to say that there wasn't any amount of horror elements, because there was. Like, I can say one sequence kind of reminded me of The Grudge, where the character of Wanda, Scarlet Witch, was crawling out of something, and the way she was doing it kind of made it look like she was fidgeting and twitching. Kind of reminded me of a sequence out of The Grudge, and it was outright creepy. Like, when I saw it, I'm like, wow, that is something that they've never done before. I mean, we've seen it, like, we've seen that kind of trope where like a weird ghostly paranormal entity moves in a really weird staticky way. And when I first saw that in an MCU movie, I'm like, that's new, that's different, I like that. So I'm kind of glad that Marvel Studios is going in a different directions with their movies, because a major criticism that people have for Marvel Studio movies is that it's very formulaic. It's very predictable. You can tell what's going to happen with a character and like their growth and their progression as a character. Not in this movie. It's actually quite different. It offers new elements, like horror elements. It explores the multiverse, and it definitely takes the movie in an entirely different direction, especially towards the end, where it kind of has like a weird cutoff. Like, it just ends abruptly in a way, like kind of leaving the audience in this ambiguous state, just wondering where the characters are going to go next from here. Now, there is a mid-credit scene, and then of course there's a post-credit scene, which I think you should definitely stay for. I mean, it doesn't really mean much, but it's kind of funny, so definitely stay for that. But overall, I enjoyed Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. My only criticism is that it didn't turn out exactly the way I thought it was going to be, because of certain characters not making an appearance. And that was just me, just, you know, wishful thinking, like using wishful thinking in that case. I am impressed with the performances and the way this movie was shot. You can very much tell that this was a Sam Raimi film. However, I am disappointed because we didn't get the things that I was expecting in a way. And I think to a lot of Marvel Comics fans, it can end up being quite disappointing for them as well. But overall, it does definitely sit in my top 5 favorite MCU films of all time, which are Avengers Infinity War, Captain America Civil War, Captain America the Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, and now Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, sitting in 5th place. So overall, phenomenal movie. Go enjoy it. I'm going to give Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness an 8.5 out of 10. Guys, if you enjoyed my review, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click on the bell notifications so y'all don't miss anything. And as always, I will see you all in the next comic panel.